welcome to the latest IIBA UK AI Insights. This one, The Guardians of the Machine, is all about security and ethics and governance. We've got a couple of great presenters. I think in the BA world, they're probably the most qualified and niched into this area. We've got Bindu Chanavarappa, who is a BA consultant, the founder of cybersecurity for BA's platform, and has also authored the book Cybersecurity and Business Analyst, which is published by the BCS, and co-authored the CCA curriculum for the IIBA. So really well qualified in cybersecurity. And Kitty Hung as well is an active member of the IIBA and also BCS fellow and CITP. She's done so much public speaking, particularly on AI, and has written a book, Business Analysis in the Era of Gen AI. She's got 27 years of experience and talks so enthusiastically about all things AI, very super knowledgeable. So we know we'll be in for a treat with the pair of them. So welcome, and thank you, Kitty, and thank you, Bindu, for giving up your time to share your knowledge and expertise with everybody. So we have a chat open for you to pop Q&As in there. That'd be great. And I'll hand you over now to Bindu and Kitty to kick us off.
Thank you, Bronia, for the lovely introduction. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from today. Welcome. It's great to have you on this conversation. Thank you, Joseph, for the introduction and giving us a background. That's excellent. So yes, the rest of us, just if you can let us know from where you are dialing in and what are you planning to kind of get out from this session would be great, just to see how the expectations and the kind of audience that we have. So this is going to be a two-way conversation, or probably four-way conversation, including Brownia, Kitty, I, and you all. So which means it's a mini workshop, as you all know, and pretty much it's going to be a thinking workshop. So let's kick off that thinking first of all. I would like all of you to type in the chat the word completely if you trust AI completely. And if you trust it sometimes, then type in the word sometimes. Or if you don't trust it at all, then type in the word not at all. So that we can start thinking, okay, I see sometimes. Wow. Okay. I think we got a unanimous response. Not at all as well. Kitty, sometimes. Okay. I thought you would say all the time because you're a big fan and you talk everything about AI. Okay. So most of us agree sometimes. Other than just one person, that is fine. So pretty much the idea here for us to talk about trust when it comes to, some decisions that has a very least impact or a less impact, then probably we might trust AI. But when it comes to major decisions, huge impacts, then probably we all will take a step back to see what it is. So trust itself has nothing to do with technology. Trust comes from knowing or having the confidence that that technology is secure, fair, and accountable. And that's exactly what we will be focusing. So today we are not going to talk about all those fancy stuff, talking about what Gen AI does, especially those amazing, mesmerizing things that we all are still mesmerized with. Oh, AI is doing this, and all of that. But today we are going to talk about something. Maybe it might sound boring, but the most important thing that is the foundational aspects for AI. When we look at any skyscrapers, we say, wow, look at those buildings, look at the architecture, look at the lighting and design and all of that. We love it so much. But how many of us actually take a moment and see, wow, look at the foundation, what kind of foundation this might have, so that this structure is standing so high. Because we know that the higher the structure, the deeper the foundation has to go. And when it comes to AI, there are three critical aspects that we need. So, first and foremost is, as you know, it is the security part, and then the ethics part, and finally the governance part, which is again some of the things as we are still going through this journey. I think one of the beautiful analogy that I heard many months ago was AI is that flight all of us are taking while we build it. So we are flying and we are building this aircraft. And I thought that's really a really good analogy to understand. So the huge 90%, as you can see, the iceberg, whatever we see, the utility of it is only the 10%. The 90%, especially in an iceberg, we see only the top 10% we see, but the entire iceberg navigates based on the 90% or 91%, again based on whatever the stats, that is not visible to us. And the same goes here for AI as well. So what happens if these things are not taken care? So particularly when we talk about the lack of controls, as we know, it is not the technical things. The moment, when we talk about AI is not doing something, then it is technical. However, the root cause, as BAs, we always look at the root cause, isn't it? So the root cause is not the technical failure. Root cause is much, much, much before, from the initial discussions, recognizing the risk, or not even, like misreading those risks or those controls even before it becomes a technical issue. And if it is a technical issue, it just doesn't remain the technical issue, because it impacts the end users, it impacts the society, and it impacts the way we trust the technology as well. Like as we saw, all of us, sometimes, and one of us even say, we don't even trust AI. So I personally feel that AI is one of the best invention that humankind has actually made. But somewhere in that process, either we are not ready or we are not fully equipped to understand what is this beautiful creation or the invention that we have done. I think when you start looking at every human invention is something that nature has already done. So this also works like our intelligence. So, when a little, I always see this AI as a little child, not even as an apprentice or not even as an intern, but I see it as a little child. Whatever we kind of give that child, it just absorbs. So again, whose responsibility it is, like parents' responsibility is to ensure the right nutrition is given, the right information is given, the right environment is given for the child to bloom in a way it has to, and again harness all its potential. Similarly, AI is exactly the same. So it is our responsibility as organizations and individuals, that how we are going to groom that, what is that, how we are going to take care of what the data that we are feeding and the environment that we are creating will give us that impact. So again, as this foundation. So one of the most interesting part, as you can see here, is the BA, business analysis focus, actually is in the center of all of these three aspects. Because as BAs, we just not co-create the value, because it's a responsibility for us as a BA, because we are enabling the decision makers based on our analysis. So our decision makers take those analysis based on our they make those decisions based on our analysis. So if we don't cover the aspects, then our analysis is never complete. This I've been repeatedly telling again and again when I talk about the security cybersecurity in particular. But today with AI, it is just not the security, it is also the ethics and the governance, because that is something, like, as the analogy goes, we are building the aeroplane as we are kind of flying it. So these are very, very much important. It's just not the speed that we want to take it forward. So that is where the BA and BA's responsibility is so, so vital in this. I know many BAs, many of us will focus on, the productivity, the efficiency, how we can use it. And I'm sure prompt engineering and creating agents would be the topmost attended or trainings or the workshops or whatever it is. But a good BA will focus on these things because it's a responsibility that we have, which is our analysis, and we need to make sure that we bring the attention of our stakeholders into these aspects and then leave it with them to take the decision and to take this forward. Okay, so now that's the whole context. Let's get into the three individual aspects. So it's going to be like, as I said in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of thinking workshop here. We do a lot of thinking, pretty much because that is all we are trying to give you additional lenses. So today you're going back at the end of the session, you will have three lenses to look at security. Sorry, the AI itself, when you go back first, is security, ethics, and governance. So we are going to have a very quick introduction to this because we want to make sure that we cover all the three areas in particular in whatever the little time we have. So from now till end of the session, please don't do any multitasking. Focus on this because you will have a hands-on activity after every introduction of every part of it. So in the hands-on exercise, you will have a very tight timelines. So the very first minute when you are assigned the task, take a screenshot of that or take a photograph of that, the scenario, so that you have the task on hand with you. And when you go to your groups, first of all, identify a timekeeper because we need the time to be kept so that we can cover all the three aspects, and identify one person to be a facilitator as well so that they can go through those questions that we have in every 2 minute slot, which again, you will have all the information visual as well. I'm just giving you a brief beforehand. And finally, one person will be responsible to debrief on those questions. So for which again it will be time bound. So 2 minutes you will have for to respond to all those questions when you come back to the main group from the breakout sessions. So that is how we are going to do these activities. Cool. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, you will have all the instructions again just before the activity. So again, type in the chat box. What do you think the challenges are when it comes to AI security? What do you think at a very high level? What could be the challenge? Data security. Very good. Yes, thank you. Access to company data, sharing that too widely. Yeah, thank you. Prompt injection. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Lack of awareness of cyber criminals using AI. Absolutely. Integration risks. Yes, so I think in these five answers, we actually identified five different risks as well. So yeah, unpredictable hallucination, absorbing wider data types, absolutely. So today, for the scope of our work, we are just going to focus on one particular concept. Thank you for all the responses when it comes to AI security. So the biggest challenge when it comes to AI security is, in a typical applications that we have been working on, the software applications across the decades, there is a kind of a structure to it. Like if the condition is A, do B, if it is B, do C, or if it is something. So there is a structure to the process that we do. But when it comes to AI, there is no structure because AI learns as it is executing. It learns from the patterns. It learns from whatever the information that is fed in. Typically when as I was sharing, like a little child, through all the senses, it sees and it learns. The child learns. It kind of experiences and the child learns. So typically when it comes to AI, it learns from the different behaviors. which means it is not at the end, but it is how we train the AI, or as a parent, how we give that information becomes so important. So today for our discussion, we are going to look one of those risks that is called data poisoning. As one of you just identified, the first important was the data risk. So it is how good the quality, because the data is the engine for AI. AI is whatever the programs that is running, but the engine is the data that goes behind it. So as we look at this word itself, data poisoning. So poisoning means it is contaminated. That means we cannot use the data as it is. So here is actually one of the real life examples, that Microsoft chatbot Tay, which was on Twitter. It was introduced so that it can learn the pattern and respond. But I think probably if you have already read about this information or this particular example, so I think within hours, there was a lot of wrong information, misinformation, abusive language, all of those things was actually fed into the AI, which means the AI was not as expected. It wasn't functioning, and it had taken all the information that it shouldn't have. And as a child, AI also does what it is, what goes in, the same thing came out. So this is one of the very common and high risk areas for the AI security. So as a BA, because the whole essence of this particular workshop is, as BAs, what can we do? So we have one of our superpowers is asking the right questions. So first and foremost, as a BA, tomorrow when you go back, you can start looking at all of these things to say, where did the data come from? Can it be trusted? What happens if those goes wrong? Identify all of those scenarios that can go wrong, identify those risks, facilitate those risk workshops, and try to find out, because as initially I was telling, as accurate our analysis is, the decisions will be accurate, and based on those decisions the applications will be developed, and based on those applications it impacts the real life or our society. So this is the first and foremost high risk when it comes to data security or the AI security. So now let's look at the task. As I mentioned, you will have 10 minutes for the task. So identify the timer, a facilitator, and a presenter. Spend approximately 2 minutes per question and validate it with the group with a 30-second response when you are going to present it back. So you can discuss about that. So you have 10 minutes to do this activity. So here comes the first scenario. Please take a screenshot or a photograph of this so that you have the scenario at hand while you discuss. So we have these three questions, and as you discuss, 2 minutes per question, come up with different scenarios. You can make assumptions, whatever you want as per your scenario, and then create a 30-second group response to respond when you come back for these above questions. So let me see if there are any questions. Okay, thank you, Kitty. Okay, cool. So Bronya, I think over to you now
Great.
to,
We'll do
yeah,
some breakouts. There, shall I pop six great breakout rooms? That's like 4 or 5 people in each of
yeah,
the
I think
back
that's fine.
room. Three. There we go. Right, we should all be back. Over to you, Bindu.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so can we first of all have the facilitator, sorry, whoever is assigned to debrief, if you can unmute and come on video to share, please. How many groups did we have,
We have
Brania?
6 altogether. So do you want to
Six
do like
altogether.
a
Yeah, maybe all of them can share, which would be good. 30 seconds if we are sharing. So can we have someone representing group one, please?
Right.
Glenn. Hi, go on.
Okay, cool. If it's us, yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Glenn. So there were a couple of questions, right? So the first one, when we went through the initial bit based on that. So we were talking about, what's the biggest risk? So we just summarized it into 3 points. So the three key ones were sort of, essentially harm to human life is unacceptable. Yeah. So we said that patient safety is on top. That's point number one. Then we said, rolling something out like this, in terms of, given that the exam question is what's the biggest risk, is, the reputation of the company would be at risk. So that's massive. And third one, which is intertwined with number two, is basically about the legal implications. So the risk of being sued and the overall monetary risk. So that's the way we structured these three that we had. Yeah. Moving on to question two, would you allow deployment? I think it was a resounding, I mean, it wasn't a resounding no, but we said, although in theory everyone agreed we wouldn't approve the deployment, but there was a little bit of a but if we were permitted, where we said we could perhaps put it into some sort of a trial mode, or,
Yeah.
basically look at it as use it for evaluation or testing, not totally dismiss it. Then the third one was what must absolutely happen. By the way, team, if there's anything, please, if I miss out, please do feel free to shout out. What must happen before an actual release? So we said, the training data, given that that's the base or the starting point, training data would need a thorough review, check for biases, and ensure who the data supplier is, look at, the actual data sets being used. So real heavy focus on the actual data being used. Try and understand what inferences were being made. How was it actually being looked at? What's the logic, if that can be reviewed? Then we would also, I think this one was a good one. If we can carry out to see, if some certain sort of incorrect results were there, if we can basically trace our way back and try and see why that was why that happened. Understand the traceability or logic that was followed by AI. And again, a similar one was run it on known outcomes and see, if we knew that, if it's either a zero or a one, if we know this was the output, what was it at the beginning? Something that was confirmed. And then the final one was, human in the loop to validate or verify the output would be handy over here. So these are the few ones that we had. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. Bronia, can we make a
Yeah,
slight change? Because I think it is justifiable to give the opportunity to share a bit more rather than just 30 seconds. We can't answer
yeah,
because
no
there's
problem.
context
That was group.
important.
Yeah, that was
So
group
can we
five.
have two each, like two now,
Two
two
groups?
for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
second,
exactly.
and so that everybody will still get a chance across the sessions. Are you okay?
Yeah, so that was group five, I think, Glenn. You were in group five, weren't you? So Joseph, were you group one? Were you you've popped up to the front of the list, so I'm guessing you might be the spokesperson for one, is that right? You want to come off mute?
Yeah, no, it wasn't actually me as the spokesperson. I
Oh,
was I was the facilitator. I was the
okay.
integrating
Who's
discussion.
the
Uh,
spokesperson?
our
M.
teammate,
M.
um,
Hi, it's
Yeah.
M.
M.
that's right,
Excellent.
M. You are our fantastic spokesperson.
Okay.
Thanks, Joseph. So for our group, for the three questions, so the first one was around the biggest risk, and the risk that we discussed and agreed on was around patient death, so just harm to patient. So yeah, so based on the errors and based on the data, we did say that, the biggest risk is harm death to patient death. And also we discussed reputational risk as well, just for the healthcare provider in terms of the impact of the of the impact of the data poisoning. Then, in terms of the next question on deployment, we agreed that it was a no, and we said just because of based on risk assessment. So, if a risk assessment was to be done, the risk is quite severe, and the impact and severity of deployment is severe and quite high. Just as I mentioned earlier, patient death and harm to patient, miscare, and reputational risk. So the deployment would be a no for that. And then finally, in terms of what should happen before release, we touched on a couple of things. The first was around verifying the data set, so understanding the source of the data, um, data labeling to be able to understand the data better and then also validating the data. So, for example, through testing.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. So how did you, maybe all of you can just type in the chat, how did you find this exercise? Basically, when it comes to the security aspect, today, will your lens, will there be an additional lens when you go back to check, or any other takeaways that you have before we move to the second part of this discussion? So if you quickly can just put one takeaway in the chat box, that would be great, so that we all can know that there was something that you will action when you go back tomorrow, because this is like a commitment. When you actually commit, the chances are you're going to take action on that, hence this. Okay, that said, I think I will hand it over to Kitty to talk about the ethics part. Over to you, Kitty, and please let me know when you want me to move the screens as well.
So before I explain to you what is AI ethics, I would like to give you a real life example about what is going on now in the AI world. I call it AI money loop, or I call AI circular financing. It is not illegal because there's no rules and regulation to stop people from paying something without the real money. But I think this practice is quite misleading and unethical. Look at the biggest company, one of the biggest company in the world, NVIDIA, and also the very big AI leader, OpenAI, and one of the very top software company called Microsoft. What the entwining relationship among these three companies? First of all, the relationship with OpenAI and NVIDIA look is OpenAI needs GPU chips. NVIDIA is very keen to sell the GPU chips to OpenAI, but OpenAI cannot come up with the cash to buy that. So NVIDIA has sold 30 billion US dollar chips to OpenAI, but OpenAI sell the shares to NVIDIA. With this, OpenAI basically led NVIDIA to become one of its investors. That circular flows allow both companies to report revenue from their own investment and accounts, bypassing market validation. The market validation, especially NVIDIA and Microsoft, they are public company. They need to be transparent to the shareholders and investors. As you know, a lot of the money invested in public companies, they actually from fund managers using people's pension fund and retail investors' life savings. To bypass the market validation, I think it is quite immoral, because NVIDIA now they can claim they in their book they have bumped up with $30 billion sales, and then but OpenAI at the moment it is a private company, but they are going for IPO, so they will need to be more transparent, because the future value of the company will impact on the share. At the moment, OpenAI has sold the number of shares worth $30 billion to NVIDIA. But what if OpenAI future earnings or future prospect drops? Then the money will be depreciated. So on the other hand, at the same time, OpenAI also needs a cloud solution and also need the data center compute power. So they approach Microsoft, but they need that, but then they cannot come up with the necessary cash to pay for it. So Microsoft issued something called credit. Microsoft has sold the compute power and assured cloud storage to OpenAI on the credit. It's called a gift card strategy. So on Microsoft book, it said we have sold $13 billion to OpenAI with assured cloud solution and data center compute. But there's never any real cash changing hand. It's like I give you a gift voucher for $10,000. You come to my stand in the market to buy $10,000 for the lemonade, and then I can tell my investors, I have just sold $10,000 lemonade to Bronia. Bronia has got the lemonade, but I haven't got the cash because it's just on the paper. So I think we need to be more, you know, aware of what is going on at the moment amongst the AI community. So next slide deck, please. So the next part I would like to discuss is my goal and our goal is to have a kind of equitable access. We train the data not based on the historical bias or subjective data. We want to reach to the destination that everybody is being considered or evaluated based on the personal individual merit. But at the moment, it's not happening. The reality without ethics is you have the historical bias data. First of all, AI is not a moral agent. AI is a mathematical statistical engine. AI just calculate what's the possibility based on the statistic, based on historical statistic. Algorithms are not neutral either. They are the opinions embedded in the code. If the AI is subjective and biased with discrimination, then it will embed it in the algorithm, and then the algorithm will come up with the extrapolation, which is biased, discriminative, and subjective. Without the AI guardrails, AI will amplify the existing social tail cracks, turning recruitment, mortgage application, or even policing into the engine of inequality. If the AI data is biased historically, for example, I worked in the Met for a long time, police, they conduct stop and search based on the historical data that people live in certain postcode and people from certain marginalized community, ethnic minority, they will be, statistics show highly likely to reoffend. For this reason, police will target them for stop and search, which is totally unfair because police should, based on individual evidence, to target the individual who might be highly likely to reoffend, not based on their color, their community, their ethnicity. So when you go down to the AI training, because you have the algorithmic discrimination, then you have the social division, the stratification. I give you another example, mortgage application. Then they will using the historical data that people come from certain minority background or they live in a certain postcode, they might be likely to be rejected because this is based on the historical data in the last 30 years. Same as recruitment. Historically, IT jobs, technical jobs is male dominated. Then the algorithm say, okay, we screen out female for technical roles, which is not fair. So next slide deck, please. At the beginning of this presentation, we have this kind of survey. Do you trust AI? Some sometimes and some not at all. No, we should not totally trust AI. We should have a we have like a cautious confidence. If the AI input and then AI processing is low risk and high confidence. For example, if you're a call center, the AI will receive the request. AI will issue the tickets to the requester, and then AI will pass the tickets to the appropriate team to escalate the resolution. For the call center or technical support, that's absolutely fine. Then we can rest assured that AI can do this because if it passed it to the wrong team, then you just come back to the correct team. There's no life and death situation. However, if you have something that you more complicated, high risk and low confidence, then human must be involved. I call it human oversight or decision loop or human in the loop protocol. As I said before, AI is just a mathematics statistic calculation engine. Encoding morality and integrity must not be automated by the machine. So we need to. That's why when people say, oh, I'm going to be replaced by AI, I said to them, no, you're not going to replace by AI. You're going to do something AI cannot learn. AI has never lived in this world. They have no life experience. So that's my conclusion of this ethical guardianship and AI ethics presentation. So we are going to move to the task. The next task will be, as a scenario, you are a BA, you help the AI team to train the AI model. And then you've been given a list of credentials and usernames and password to access to the content, high quality content behind the paywall, like news articles, newspapers, organization, book publishers, and also academic paper repository, but they are behind the paywall. But then when you ask the AI team, where did they get this credential from? And they said, don't worry, just do it. Because we need to train the AI model with high quality data set. So the question to you is it legal, unethical, or both? Who will benefit as a result of this high quality data training by passing with questionable credential, accessing to the data behind the paywall? And number three, what should BA, as BA, what should you do? Okay, let's go.
So, Bronya, shall we say group 2 now?
Yeah, so we've got either Shobin or Bertina in that group. Which one of you?
Okay, group 2, could you please?
Sure. Hey, Bindu. Hey, Kitty. So Shobin here.
Hey.
We had Patricia and Bettina there. Patricia had to just drop off because she had a call. Within our group, we all agreed that it is definitely going to be illegal and unethical to start using the credentials because number one, for sure it is illegal, no doubts about it, but it is unethical because it breaks the fundamental principles of privacy and trust that the consumer had with the platform. Because when they signed up with their credentials, that was supposed to be a contract between the customer and the platform that this is the only mechanism. This is like a lock and key, right? So it is just between me, my house, and my lock and my key. But now everyone is going to share it. So that completely breaks away the trust. So it's absolutely unethical. Who benefits? Again, as a group, we were very clear that the organization benefits in the short term. But I think we had a bit of a debate on that topic because we felt it's a humane question, and humanely we feel that is unethical, it's not right, and it's unfair. But then, since Patricia was from US, we just stumbled upon this aspect that the Hollywood writers had a big, massive protest because their whole writings were used and they were getting out of jobs and all of that element. So while we all agree that this is unethical, it shouldn't be used, but the reality of the fact today is that companies any which ways will do it. And I think Patricia put it very nicely that it is okay to ask for forgiveness than for asking for permission. So we are seeing the big tech organizations which any which ways take our data. And even if we complain, they may just pay out and it's done. So I think while AI is going great, as Kitty mentioned in her topic on ethics, we feel ethics is existing on paper as a good concept, but in reality, organizations are misusing it.
Excellent. Thank you, Shobin. So, group, which group next? You're on mute, Pranya.
Sorry. The group 6 had Robert and Yogita in it, so either of those maybe.
Yeah. So we have had a really good session. So the first we started with whether it is illegal or unethical. Yes, we all agreed that yes, it is illegal and unethical, primarily because of fair use policy. And when the customer and the platform is having an interaction, and if the organization is using it, then we have to understand the licensing terms and everything. We also talked about copyright infringement, which qualifies this particular point to be made illegal, and unethical because it might not comply the GDPR regulatory requirements. It is necessary to comply the DPIA assessment, and taking into consideration of what data is collected, whether it is anonymized, and how we are trying to retain the data, and etc. So if it's not done, then it is automatically qualifying to be unethical and illegal. For the second question, so the first point that was raised was the benefit of the AI vendor is ideally benefiting because they are using it to train the data model, and the benefactor would also be if they are developing an in-house AI algorithm, then the organization ideally would be the benefactor for this. Lastly, we talked about the BA's role. So we kind of came to an agreement that a BA should not be held responsible in any way. And though BA is having some kind of influence for the decision makers, I think BA should not hold any accountability or neither an authority in terms of if this goes ahead, right? So, and the RACI should be made very, very, very clear is what we felt, and making sure that these regulatory requirements are met, and the uncomplied is something that BA can do from their end.
Thank you, Yogita. Yeah, I can see Kitty completely in agreement with her nodding. And I think, Yogita, you made a very valid point that BA is not responsible. And that's exactly, I think, throughout. You can also see from the beginning, we highlight more on asking the right questions and bringing this to the attention of the decision makers. So that is where we kind of indirectly influence, because if we don't talk about that, it will go unnoticed. And we have to bring this to the attention, and that's exactly. So being mindful about the time, we've got 20 minutes. So very quickly, let's go to the last section, which is governance. So again, can everybody just type in the word that comes to your mind? What do you understand by the word governance, so that we can have half the discussion done there to save time? What does governance mean to you? Or in general, what does it mean? I think we touched some of those words again. Yeah. Structure, requirements, legislation, regulations. Yes, thank you all. So pretty much when we say the word governance, it is all relating to the accountability that we were just talking about. Who is accountable for the decisions that AI makes, or can we track and audit those decisions, or do we have a reason why AI made this decision? So these are some of the things when it comes to AI governance that we will have to again ask those questions as BA and identify. So in very, very simple terms, to ask the question, can we understand and challenge AI decisions? Because today, many of the decisions we don't know why AI takes, and we have read and heard so many incidents, so many scenarios, so many stories that AI took this decision. Why? Again, of course, we know the root cause, but for everything can we track? And that's exactly is the governance. Regulations will come in order to respond to these questions, but the underlying factor for AI governance is accountability, auditability, to make sure our decisions has a logical reason for why we are making those decisions in the first place. So when we talk about, oops, where did it go? Sorry, 1 second. Can you still see my screen, by the way?
Yep, we can. We can see without governance, decision making,
Yeah.
legal and moral black box.
Okay. It's just not moving for me.
I can take
Fine.
over the screen share.
Okay, there you
Okay.
go. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so one of the particular but a particular topic that we're going to look when it comes to governance is this black box syndrome. So what is this black box syndrome? Is again, the decisions that AI makes is something we understand or we don't understand. And that's exactly, we call it as a black box syndrome, because we don't know what's happening behind that or inside that black box, why those decisions have been made, how those decisions have been made, and on what logic, what's the rationale behind. Like in a typical application, we know because we have a condition, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do this, or go to this particular process or whatever it is. But in AI, we don't have that clarity. And that's exactly why we call this as a black box syndrome. And this can be very, very dangerous when it is impacting situations like healthcare, financial, or anything, as we can see, because today AI decisions are impacting real lives. So that is where governance is something, again, as a BA, we should be asking, how are those decisions made? Do we have the data underneath? Again, clean data, validated data, all of those. And who, again, I think some of you also suggested as part of your discussions that we need a human in the loop to actually look into these things. So some of those things that as a organization we can do is, first and foremost, have a proactive design approach rather than react. After it fails, we try to go and fix it. Instead of that, we'll have to go with a proactive design. And some of the things that we can use is, again, security by design. So the moment we start talking about bringing AI, what is the data? Is the data clean? What is the source of it? And again, when we say clean data, it is just not in terms of the fields that are populated. Again, looking at for biases or any other patterns that already is there, and identify those, and have those ethical audits at every time, at every possible situations, and identifying those scenarios where we can bring in those as ethical lens and check whether is it still a fairer judgment or a fairer decision that our AI is bringing. And finally, as we know, we have learned over a period of decades that anything has to be continuously monitored and improved. And when it comes to AI, because it is constantly learning by what it is getting, so that again needs constant monitoring as well. So again, I'm just going to skip this particular, again, which is nothing but highlighting the guardrails when it comes to the auditing as well. So we'll just go to the quick exercise, being conscious of the time. So here is your scenario where you will again apply the same process and do this scenario. And please take the screenshot or a photograph of this. And Bronya, can you please do the honors?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Sorry to drag you out. Obviously, sometimes people come straight back, and that means they finish their discussion. So I'm guessing lots of you are in full conversation. I hope you enjoyed meeting your the ones that combined meeting your new teammates. So I think we've got group 3 and group 4 to discuss. So maybe in group 3 we've got Gareth, Henna, and Watch. So which
Yes,
is leading?
I think that's me as Gareth.
Hi,
I
Gareth.
think for this one. This one, you're right. We definitely had a lot of discussion on this one. So we, in terms of shutting it down, we went down kind of the what's the impact approach for this, right? So And again, it's the risk factor of if we don't shut it down and continue to run it, what's the risk to us? Is it just do we get a slap on the wrist for being slightly biased? Is it actually going to cause a downstream impact if we have to shut it down? And I think the other side of it is what can we do immediately to work around it or to provide a solution? So could we, add the human in the loop thing to be able to see and I guess it depends on the assumption of what's actually happening. Is it bias and as in we're not even able to see these people coming through, or is it just that they're kind of down selected? In which case, do we have an opportunity to add a human in to vet the results and work out a solution? So it kind of depends on how badly this is being biased and are we even seeing those results or not, and can we add a human in to help it? So it's really kind of trying to understand the risk and impact of if we shut it down, does that mean we can't recruit anyone for X amount of time, and that whole thing of what would that look like? In terms of kind of what evidence is needed, I guess we didn't speak on this one too much. As I say, the conversation was ongoing. But I think we'd have to be able to, again, similar to something that was mentioned in the last one, is to understand kind of, well, what are the reasons for being down selected? Are they valid? Is it just that actually the skill set was not aligned with the roles that are applicable, or is there other things going on? So trying to understand the rationale for why we think this is appearing biased, what are the actual reasons for it, and seeing what that is. And then the accountability piece is a really interesting one for us. We couldn't quite get to a definitive answer, right? Because ultimately our company is responsible for using that tool, and therefore as business owners using that tool, we would have some accountability. But if that AA model is provided to us as part of a third-party tool or otherwise, then how do we get that accountability back up to the model owners itself to make sure that is trained in an ethical and equal way? So there's probably some shared and grey area accountability there in terms of how we use it and what we do when we recognize these things, but also how do we then kind of pass the buck on or pass the information on to make sure that tool is providing unbiased answers in the future.
Great. Thanks,
Thank
Gareth.
you.
And we've got Mfon, Tupe, and Nithin on room 4. Which of you was your speaker? Probably only got a couple of minutes if you want to summarize yours.
Yeah, I'm Nitin. I can go. The first question, do you want to? So one of the assumptions we have said this is already live. It's accessible to the public. So do you want to shut down? We said no, we won't. We will not make it public accessible, but we'll bring it back for retraining the model, understanding what is the problem, do the RCA to fix it. Yes, it won't be accessible to the public, but we won't shut down the whole system. It will be retrained. The second is what evidence is needed. This is where we said it's more on data analysis where a human element is brought in, saying the number of applicants that have applied versus how many got shortlisted. We'll try to do that analysis to identify what is the problem. And also if there are any complaints coming in by the applicant saying, I'm the best, I'm eligible for the particular role, and it is getting rejected. So we'll also look into the complaints as well. So that would be the evidence part to justify why shouldn't we make this AI model available to the public. The third is on the accountability. This is where we are debating who is accountable, because it's a very tricky one. We can't hold one person accountable for the whole issue. It might be the senior stakeholders, but it is I would say collective failure rather than pinpointing and making one person a scapegoat.
Excellent. Thank you, Nitin. I think you've kind of summarized it all well, both the groups, of course, but particularly, yes, in practical real world scenarios, we might not be able to completely switch it off. But of course, we will have to work, as you suggested, go back to the training data, look at the data hygiene, and then see probably for all the factors. And yes, one of the important question is accountability. So AI is not accountable. Definitely the organization is accountable. And again, every organization has different views on that. And I had a very brilliant conversations on this few weeks back, because again, when we talk about data, the raw data, a particular department might own it, but what about all of those transactions and as the data changes across through the system? So it's an amazing, completely another different world, or an amazing aspect where we really as BAs need to kind of get involved to kind of go through the data journey itself to identify who owns and who will be accountable. And yes, it's a collectively, but even with that collective as an organization, which department or who exactly in that department. So all of that will come down into those aspects as well. So finally, as BAs, we are here to do the right things, not just doing things right. So that's the very key message I want all of you to kind of take. And with that perspective, add these three lenses as you're going to work and go back into your organizations and see how you're going to use or how you're going to ask those questions, how you're going to bring these aspects into your analysis and get the attention of those responsible decision makers. So if anything, this would be one of your key takeaway that you can be taking from this workshop is when it comes to the three foundational aspects. These are the three key questions you should be able to answer as a BA or have that evidence that these questions are answered as a starting step and then get into the details of it. So that brings us to the end of it. Thank you very much for your time and your energy and for making this an interactive session with all your perspectives. And I don't think so. We are 2 minutes off. So I will hand it over back to Branya.
Thanks, Bindu. Thanks, Kitty. And I didn't see any Q&As pop up as we went through, but that's because I think we're all thinking if there is any, then please reach out to Bindu and Kitty on LinkedIn. If you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'll happily receive those. And we'll see you next time. I think there's another one next week. I don't think we've got a date in the diary yet, but we'll see you next time for the next AI Insight.